So, guys, welcome back to Totally Random Questions, Episode 3. This is starting to look a little more professional. I finally got that section below my face trimmed up. Arleus is here. If you don't know Arleus, I think of you as a speed leveler in World of Warcraft Classic, but you're really just a WoW player that likes optimizing things.
Yeah. I just been playing for 15 years and just like to see what the heck we can pull off.
Yeah, now full time. So, lots of Arleus to be enjoyed. So, this segment is brought to you by Random Questions. They've been random magazines every time. This one will be coming from GQ. The dapper Trevor Noah on front. And actually, there's an article in here about the 2020 bubble. And so I think the 2020 obviously meant a lot for Arleus as you made the move from traditional employment to now telling people I get lots of experience on imaginary characters for a living. And so I thought, you found an interesting way to live through quarantine. So I wonder if them asking the coaches, hey, what do you guys feel about this? And them asking this is centered around like the experience the coaches had, the experience the players had, and so on. Like you've clearly had a crazy bubble of your own experience. So the first one is talking about like how dire would the consequences have been if the season had been canceled? And for that, I think you, as somebody who covers Classic, we are looking down the barrel of potentially a Burning Crusade announcement. What does this mean for you, like as far as like how do you expect Classic to end? And then what does it mean for you if they do announce Burning Crusade? But what does it mean for you if they don't announce Burning Crusade as we look at February?
So if they don't announce it, I call up my old boss and beg forgiveness pretty much. No, I think, with the backing of, another side gig as financial coaching, I think I should be okay if they don't. But I think that they likely will. I see Classic ending and just progressing naturally into TBC. I think we could potentially have a gold cap at between 2,000 and 5,000 gold and potentially just soulbound items that you take over. That way the economies can't be completely altered and completely manipulated. I know one guy who has over 1 million gold just in raw gold. So you could completely control the market in TBC. So I could see that happening, but I think at this point, it's probably 99% chance that we get TBC.
What would happen if I wanted to join TBC and I didn't play Classic? Do you think there's a character creator that just drops you in at 58 or something like that?
Oh, I think you start at 1. And
old school.
Reason why is there were some catch-up mechanics back in TBC back in the old day.
Uh-huh.
And so some other content creators like Tommy Tasami and Tactics are testing them out right now. And you can catch up real quick to leveling. And I think too, if it's your first time playing WoW, or even if you're coming from retail, it's a whole different experience leveling up from retail to TBC and Classic. So I think you got to go through it. I think it's part of the game.
Okay. I just kind of wondered. The bubble negotiations with players, since they're the ones that kind of have to deal with this. Blizzard with Classic, obviously long history with Classic, right? Long relationship of you think you do, but you don't. Blizzard's really good at coining a phrase. They just have yet to have control of which phrase gets coined. But they're very good at starting something. What is their what can they do better moving forward to communicate as we move into like the next round of content, whether you're talking about retail, Classic, like obviously we've learned a lot through BFA and Classic about communication.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that they took a step in the right direction at the end of Classic with Nax coming out, extending the crystals and not having them deplete as quickly as they did. I think that was a huge step because that was kind of the first time where they said, all right, you know what? We're actually looking at Classic as something important and doing something that needs to be changed. I think it's Mad Season who says, if they don't make any changes in Classic will be changed, right? Because
right. Hashtag
today
no changes is changes.
Yes, it's so much different than back in the day. So I think them continuing to look at TBC and say, okay, this was what it used to be like. This is what it actually should be like, I think is a huge step. And if they can communicate that, these polls that are going on are a good step in the right direction, trying to get actual like public audience. I think more of that would probably be good. And then just devoting more resources to it. I think the biggest issue with Classic right now is they're so understaffed that
that's true.
That's
how it was.
What?
That's how it was. That's hashtag no changes.
I guess that's the classic experience, right?
It was. We thought maintenance would be 8 hours. It's actually going to be 3 days. We are so sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna DDoS. We'll see you tomorrow. But I think I mean obviously the botting is a big thing right now in Classic, and we could dive into that if you want. But I think devoting more people to that and taking Classic as kind of another retail level of focus would be huge for TBC.
Have you messed around a lot with the new player experience in retail?
With like the aisles and stuff like
the
that.
aisles and leveling up through Chromie time, and it's just the whole everything somebody new to WoW today in retail experiences like 100% different experience than they would have 8 months ago.
Dude, I've played WoW for literally since right at the month it came out. I was lost when I went back to retail with Shadowlands. It is so different.
It's
but
so
yeah,
different.
I have. I leveled up a mage, brand new through Echo, and then or Isles, and then I also went through Outlands to try to get a prep of Outlands.
I mean, I think they're the first ones to really boldly tackle what happens when a game has chronic long-term success.
Yeah.
It suffers from too much content. And other games really owe WoW a debt of gratitude, whether they handle it well or not, because it at least sets like a bar for like what happens when Final Fantasy 14, they're about to go into 6.0 this year. What happens when that's 9.0? Right now they have an MSQ like Shadowlands does. They have a main quest that must be cleared by at least your main character. They have the same thing, except they've always had that. And so you have to go back and you have to play single player RPG, single player RPG, and then get into current single player RPG, and then current in-game. And like the first time that was no big deal. It's like, yeah, I love Final Fantasy games. That's why I'm here. And then the second time I was like, well, I mean, like you said, there's mechanics for that. It'll be fine. They should have to start at the beginning. But like, at what point do we look backward and go, okay, but that's like, you shouldn't have to play every game that came out for the last 2 decades to be allowed to just join the person you're seeing on Twitch or the guy you met at work that plays the same kind of game as you. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. And it's interesting to see that kind of intent versus an exact recreation. And like Classic can be treated very different than retail. Like they are more and more becoming two totally different games.
Yeah. Especially the player base as of late.
I think it's nice. One subscription, if you don't like one, if you get bored with one, you can jump over to what's effectively it'll feel different but familiar. I think it gives them a lot to play with.
I think it's awesome. Have you ever played RuneScape?
I did not. I missed RuneScape.
So they, just like you were saying with WoW kind of paving the way, old school RuneScape kind of went the same approach where, God, it must have been probably 6 years ago now that they made it. But they basically realized that a lot of their player base liked the original aspect of RuneScape, not the advanced. And so they made a game called Old School RuneScape, just like Classic.
Okay.
And then it just continues to progress. And they started to realize that it's so big and so many people play it that they started switching over more resources, started getting feedback, started making changes, and actually progressed it forward as a game.
Does it eventually pass the other one? Like does it take a different timeline? Do we skip Warlords of Draenor? Do like you avoid? Do you eventually build a different expansion for Classic?
It would be we get to Wadokay and then we have new content.
That would be mind-blowing. And then do you start a third parallel reality at Classic, and then when it gets to WoD it takes yet a third turn? Like,
so that's another interesting idea too. I think so many people don't want to go past Wadokay. I think if you go past Wadokay, it's like, all right, how long?
Wrath is until current Final Fantasy. Wrath was my last favorite expansion.
Was it? Yeah. Yeah. At that point, they've hinted at the potential of Classic seasons almost,
like a ladder,
where they just release this Classic just as it would be, and you level up, you progress through that content again and again. I think to a point that might get tiring. Maybe if you had some XP multipliers, maybe drop multipliers, maybe. bosses drop one item for every class, something to change it up a bit. I think that could be
It
a
turns into
potential
like
win.
the ultimate Diablo. Like it
Oh
turns into
yeah.
where you have a hardcore server for the Iron Man guys, and you've got ladder
Hey.
characters and non-ladder, where non-ladder is
Yep.
just a bunch of botting, duping shenanigans. Um, it turns
Yeah.
into some real craziness, and you could have, you know, hashtag no changes servers versus Paragon servers where you've got XP modifiers and bringing
Yep.
cosmetics forward, and like it turns into a like that's more like the worlds of Warcraft. Like it's this
Yeah.
totally other like all of the parallel, and then you've got and then we got retail over here just paving the way through its own main
Yep.
story. Everything happens once, and then legacy content is.
Yep. Keep on going, one-shotting everything, and all that.
I'm not against it. I don't know if I want it, but
Interesting.
I'd be interested for the. I don't want to have to wait 10 years and then eat a scoop of vanilla ice cream at BlizzCon to find out. Like, let's actually do
Yeah.
it.
It'll be interesting to see.
All right. So as people entered the bubble, they were there was obviously like a mental health thing, and there's going to be artificial habits, and like the bubble changes it, right? It's that no changes thing. So like, how do you feel quarantine has affected like content creation, has affected the community, like WoW Classic itself? Like it's obviously had an effect, but obviously now it's like, oh, well, everybody's just staying home playing video games. I don't know if you saw that article where they're like, our kids just playing video games. It's like, what else can they be doing? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel quarantine's kind of driven your life and obviously your community?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you asked that. Timing wise, yesterday I was sitting and looking at Snapchat, and I think constantly now, whether it's Ninja or the latest skin or Call of Duty or something like that, there's always something about Twitch on Snapchat now. I feel like when we were younger, or at least the start of WoW, just for example, it wasn't that it was frowned upon to play a bunch of video games, but it wasn't as
You didn't brag.
it wasn't mainstream.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, schools are picking it up, and I think as far as content creation goes, it just blew up Twitch. Like Twitch was growing very fast, but COVID, I remember that first when everything started and people were still feeling, good, like, oh, this is vacation time, sweet. I mean, I had at times like 400 or 500 people in the channel, and the overall Twitch scene was just massive. And I had not been streaming for long, and it was just because so many people were home. They were on holiday, they were on break.
Yeah.
So I think it has done a massive amount to the gaming community, and I think it's really helped to legitimize the scene a lot.
So to ask you locally how it's legitimized it, what does your fiance tell strangers you do for a living? There's the barometer.
So my fiance is not the biggest fan of video games.
Sure.
And has politely told me that had I told her I played video games when we started dating, we would not be at this point. But she's been a really good sport about it. She tells pretty much everyone how it is. She says that I play video games while other people watch, and I try to teach them.
Okay.
And that's basically how she phrased it, which is it's pretty accurate. And then all the other people are like, wait, but then they pay him? Like the other people are
where's
more
the money part?
Yeah.
What do because like we would love to say you just do this for the art of it, but then like the mortgage company calls and you're like, but I've been making cool stuff, and they're like, yeah, I don't care.
Yep.
So yeah, my wife uses the term digital entrepreneur, and she does. She has her own Switch, she plays her own games, so she does game, but she uses the term digital entrepreneur at work. She just finds it causes less questions.
I like that.
It's just easier. And she's been doing that. And when I did meet her, I did tell her how many games I played. But at the time, I was playing sand volleyball like 2 to 3 days a week. I was super tan. I was in college. I had 3 roommates that all worked out like feverishly, and so I was in shape from peer pressure. I don't actually gravitate to that, but like I'd be sitting on the couch like, come on, man, just come to the gym for a little bit. And so like I was fitter than I've ever been since. I was too broke to eat junk food, and so like I looked great. And so she was like, yeah, you play video games, like not at all. And now here we are, and we went through dating and then engagement, and now we've been married 8 years, and now we have a whole room in the house where she puts all the things where all my old video game consoles and stuff go, all the things that she would be totally fine with me not having. And she's like, I guess I thought you were like kidding. Like self-deprecating humor. And I'm like, no, I play video games. Yeah, you play video games. I'm like, no, like a lot. Like a lot. Sure you do. No, like a lot.
That's amazing.
So I did tell her. She just didn't believe me. And so now she's here. She's like, I wish I would have listened. So it's the same thing your fiance said. It's just like, I just assumed you were joking.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right. So anything in planning the bubble that proved to be more difficult than expected. Not everything in major terms such as safety protocols and stuff, but like things like you didn't have a barber shop. Keeping it on kind of this quarantine, keeping it on like this, obviously your life with content creation has just changed drastically. So even if you'd become full-time not with quarantine, is there anything about moving to full-time that you think you just didn't expect, that you're like, I don't know, just anything that you found harder or easier as a result of making the change?
Yeah, so as far as timing goes, I think that the transition's honestly been a lot easier. I think that if I was going into work every day on a consistent daily basis, driving in and everything, it would be a massive shift. But since we've been home, I was working from home constantly for the past, 8-9 months. As far as my work environment, it hasn't shifted too much outside of what we were talking about before with the social interaction.
Right.
So I think that's been decent. As far as whether it's been easier or difficult, I don't know if I really know yet. I'm still pretty early on. It's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun.
Honeymoon phase.
Honeymoon phase. I'm in the honeymoon phase. But I think it'll be interesting to see as it moves forward, because I guess it's all going to depend on how COVID continues to go, right? And what kind of impact it's going to have.
Yeah.
If the audience, once everybody goes back, decreases, that could definitely make it more difficult. But at the same time, the audience could stay. And so I think we're at an interesting point just as content creation in general of, is this a long-term effect or is this going to end once COVID ends?
Okay.
Kind of a roundabout way to answer the question. But
no, I think it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict what's going on with gaming, right? You're obviously covering a game that's for the fact that it's so old, is ever shifting and is highly unpredictable, for the fact that we can literally look back and see exactly how it went the first time. We have no idea what happens the second time. I assume TVC will be a massive amount of people interested on launch.
Yeah.
TVC was what... The Burning Crusade is the reason I play MMORPGs today. WoW was a reason that it really endeared me to gaming communities. It really helped me find that there are people like me. Like you said, it was hard to find other gamers, and so WoW is what introduced me to the fact that there are other people that are willing to just nerd out about something that absolutely shouldn't matter to a ridiculous degree. But the Burning Crusade is where I got into hardcore raiding. It's where it really is where I just became addicted, and to a genre that now, even when I take a break from a game, I'm like, okay, I'm done. But I mean, not done with MMORPGs. I just kind of want like I log off at 14. I'm like, I need like a week off. I'll go play WoW. Like I just, and the Burning Crusade is what started that. It's what I fell in love with. So I think awesome. I don't think I'm alone in that way, and I think the Burning Crusade Classic, whatever we're gonna call it, TVCC, is going to really bring back a lot of fond memories for people. It's a big nostalgia tour, and I think for me it was still the peak of normal dungeon design when CC mattered. When you looked at a poll and you said, okay, we have multiple target priorities here. You're like, oh, is this a boss? No, we just need to do this to get to the next room, and then we're going to talk about that poll. So like, I really liked that.
Yeah.
I liked attunements. That's a weird thing to like.
Odd, but at the same time, I understand it. Like it's you got to naturally progress into it, and it kind of explains not necessarily backstory every time, but it's a target to move towards for the goal. It's nice.
I liked it. My guild, we had all the keys across the guild, but nobody had all of the keys until later in. And so it was very much a like, is so and so on? We need to run this dungeon. And so it was just this really like, who can open this for us? And like, I don't know. I thought keys were a really neat mechanic that I understand why it's gone, but it'd be exciting to see how you guys respond to it.
I think TBC is the most favorite of all expansions. I think if we look back at the classic reaction, I think it was amazing. I think TBC might even shatter it. So, some of my best friends that I had in classic or WoW back in the day, and still my friends today are literally just from the game from around that time. It was just so much fun. I have so many memories.
Like a lot of dungeon design from classic is objectively bad. Like it's not a good way to build a game. But they, in their defense, they'd never built one before. So I think TBC was their first time to go, okay, what did we really learn? Like, it was their first real game after they I don't think they expected WoW to be anything. I don't think a single person could have expected what WoW was going to be. So TBC was their first chance to respond.
Yeah. MC got built in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Something like that.
You listen to the panels and you listen to and you're like, and they were pulling people off any other project, every other project. They're like, just come on in.
Yeah.
Just start coding. What am I writing? I don't have time to tell you. Just figure it out. Like, there was no plan. And they talk about Classic, how they went back and there were all these shortcuts they took with like the lights. Like, what they had is any texture that wasn't loaded was default to turn on the light. Just white light.
Oh, wow.
And now they actually handle light as like a real thing because we have like better graphics now. And so when they booted up Classic servers off of original code for the first time, now any unloaded texture is that pink and black checkerboard we all expect. And they said every lamppost in Westfall was just pink and black textures.
Oh my gosh.
So there was all these little things. And everybody's like, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just boot it up? It's like, because this is going to run on real BattleNet. This isn't a private server. This has to run legit. And to run legit, because we have like your credit card information, all this stuff, this has to be secure. There can't be exploits. It has to be held to a quality level that a private server won't be. It has to be able to handle a load that a private server won't. And right now, if we boot it up in its existing state, there are things that just like, there's pink and black lampposts.
Boxes everywhere.
You can't do that. So they had to go spin up textures for things that were missing.
Yeah. I mean, I think they deserve a lot of credit for being able to pull it off without the code, right? Originally getting the code from somebody else to be able to pull it off in general. It's awesome. And it's been responded to, I think, very well so far.
Absolutely. All right. So now, of course, basketball had a big response to George Floyd and everything. To kind of pair that with gaming has had a huge number of controversies as we've come into the mainstream, where behavior of a select few might have slid by when we were just gamers, but now that you talk about people making millions of dollars, you talk about millions of eyeballs, there is like a legitimacy to this. So like within and Blizzard is not afraid to step into that stage and try to claim some of that limelight. They have had their own controversies. So as we move forward, as it feels like, Shadowlands overall doing pretty decent out of the gate. Classic, moving things in the right direction. Like as it feels like, okay, Blizzard might be kind of headed and away we go. But at the same time, we see people going off and starting their own studios and all of that. And there's this question of like, is there brain drain? Like as you as a Blizzard creator, how do you kind of compromise between the feelings of like what you care about and what you're passionate about, and obviously when they would do something or say something that you're like, I don't agree with?
From my perspective or from a Blizzard employee?
No, from your perspective. Like as a creator, right? Because you're kind of condoning the game you play. You're kind of actually suggesting the game you play, which may support a company that occasionally gets something very wrong.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Thank you, GQ.
I think it's a fine balance. It's interesting because I think that the company that made Vanilla is much different than the company that made Classic. And this is, no negative towards Blizzard in its current state, but I think there was just a lot more passion back then, right? They were building a game for fun. It wasn't the largest MMORPG out there that they're trying to keep alive.
They didn't have thousands of employees' livelihoods on the line, right? They had a bunch of guys who didn't have kids yet, or whatever, like a handful of passionate people who were willing to risk it all. I don't think everybody that works at Blizzard is in a position to like, you know what? I don't need to pay my student loans. Like, let's gamble. Like, I don't think that's I think some people are like, I'd like to know that when I accept this job that you'll be around next year.
So with that in mind, I think you got to accept that it's a company at sometimes, right? And I think I think we see that one prime example is having Nax come out at the same time as the Shadowlands raids, right? Probably not the best move from a gamer experience, and the
Probably
fact
not
that
the
it's
original plan.
what?
Probably not the original plan.
No, yeah, no, not the original plan either.
Shadowlands was delayed.
Yeah, delayed. But I mean, whenever that happens, I mean, you're splitting a player base, right? And so it's probably not the best experience, and I think it was probably looked negatively upon a lot of people. But especially with my financial background, I think that I understand why they do it, and I just have to accept that the game that I love to play and I love to hang out with people on and try new things on is at the end of the day still a game that a company runs, right? Especially with Activision owning it. And so
Sure.
you kind of just gotta say okay and then move past it.
I mean, I think they had Classic on a timetable, right? And they had retail on a timetable. And I think occasionally those guys are in the same room saying, what's your plan? I'll try to build my plan around it. But then one guy goes off and says, by October 27th, I actually meant Thanksgiving. And the other guy's like, no, like this ship is already moving. And so I think Classic is like, no, I'm not delaying because you can't get your crap together. So I think Classic and retail stepping on each other is something that over time I expect them to get better at handling. But unforeseen delays in one are always going to make most of Blizzard's controversies now have been foot and mouth because of a series. The Don't You All Have Phones was because that stage went down audio wise. That wasn't supposed to be the final announcement. It was supposed to just be in the mix. We're just gonna sneak that in there. We're doing this with Hearthstone or with Heroes of the Storm. All your heroes are free. With Hearthstone, there's a new season, a bunch of new stuff. Diablo's coming to phones and Overwatch 2. And it was supposed to just kind of slip in there. And then because of a technical glitch, it got the finale. So it was the last thing we heard.
Wow. And I actually never knew that.
Then, yeah, I was there. And so, like, and I was in the Overwatch stage when they were like, and you're live. And they were like, ah. And so, like, because the other stage went down, he had to go announce it from the Hearthstone stage instead, or the key stage, because that's the one with the working audio. And so then they get to a panel, and now everybody's like, okay, well, if that's your finale, you've clearly misunderstood. And we're going to let you know as fans, as core fans, we've got questions. And so then they ask questions to some developer, right? Not a PR rep, not a trained politician, not anybody who prepared for this. The whole day has not gone to plan. And this guy gets up here and somebody goes, yeah, but I wanted something for PC. And he's like, I don't know. Is that because you don't have a phone? And now Don't You Have Phones lives on forever because of it. And so, like, so much of Blizzard stuff is just one mistake, and then they trip and they fumble and they knock over the vase, and now we all focus on the vase. So, like, I think the Shadowlands launch was not timed to mess with Classic as a community. But it feels that way. It feels like, don't you guys make billions of dollars? Can't you get it together? They're still just people. Like,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? It's a bunch of people running a company. I did not know about that, though, actually. I didn't know that was not supposed to be the finale and the big announcement.
I was sitting in the Overwatch stage. I may or may not have been told that if I want to be in the coolest stage, Overwatch might be a good choice. We were given, I don't remember if it was glow sticks or noise-making things, which they said, when you walked in, they gave them to you and said, we'll tell you when to use them, because the Overwatch 2 announcement, I assume, was supposed to be the big closer, because it was the big announcement. And they did not use the glow sticks. The lights did not turn out. I just left with either glow sticks or noisemakers just unused. So, like, it didn't go to plan. That wasn't the plan. It was just a complete pivot, and it was a screw it, we're live. Like it's the opening showcase, and already and the audio had to be working because people at BlizzCon weren't on the stages because for the security. There had been all those issues with security at other events, and they were worried about BlizzCon having somebody do something violent. So they put up metal detectors, and they put up all they could. But there were like 11 metal detectors for like 59 bajillion people, and so not even everybody was in the venue. And so people were listening to it on TV screens and stuff as they were trying to get inside. And so, like, the whole thing was going sideways. And all the outside world heard was, you took my favorite franchise and you're shipping it to mobile, which actually isn't what happened. We were making Diablo 4. We can't tell you that yet. And we have contracted this. We have franchised this out with a company that does this for a living. So you're not pulling a bunch of your money into dev resources so that we can cash out, just like any of your favorite cartoons selling toys, just like, any of these games putting something on their cosmetic shop. This is no different. If you don't like it, don't play it. But they shouldn't have announced it at a core event because it's not for their core fans. It should have been at Gamescom or something like that, at E3, where the goal is to invite strangers into our community. Try out this game. It's from Blizzard. You've never heard of them. Try out. If you like it, they have bigger, better games. It should have been an invitation, and instead they announced it at BlizzCon, and instead of it being just among the announcements, it got a really big spotlight, like a massive spotlight. So like, I feel for them. It was handled poorly, but like, it was not handled intentionally poorly. It's not sabotage. It was just bumbling errors.
That's wild. You got me nervous about the TBC announcement. Maybe it'll be the little like whispering announcement now, and I have to find out about it on Twitter.
I don't know. With a digital event, I hope they go pre-recorded. I don't know what you expect, but I hope it's like a Nintendo Treehouse event or like the most recent Apple events. I hope it's. I hope much of this is pre-recorded, so let's not rely on microphones or anything. I hope so much of it is just back-to-back pre-recorded. Panels, Q&As, obviously those have to be live, but I hope that the big announcement, the opening showcase, since you don't have a live audience, there's no reason to rely on live. That's my thought. I don't know. Do you want it to just be a trailer and then like, do you want a date? What is it? What is your expectations?
So my expectation, I don't think we're gonna get all the answers. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. I would hope that we would get a date or a season.
A season. Fall.
I think
winter.
That they
fall, winter, just something loose.
Yeah. Okay. I think that they already have the code for this, right? So they do have the code for it, and sure, they have to go through retooling like they did.
Pink and black boxes.
But I don't expect it to be the same excessive beta as a Shadowlands or something like that. So I expect a decently quick turnaround, and so I think it wouldn't be out of the question to give us a date for it to happen. I think that they should also probably address if the pre-patch is going to give access to the other races that are available or not. Outside of that, I think they can answer the rest of the questions later. Cool.
Well, that's plenty. Where can people find you? When are you live? When do you post things? If you post things outside, what's going on?
Yeah, so you can find me twitch.tv/Arleus, the YouTube Arleus. I go live, I think, let me think, at least 5 days a week, maybe 6 on Twitch for about 40 some odd hours total. So stream a bunch, stream Classic, and then I'm also working on some retail stuff too until we get TBC going, and then it's pretty much all TBC from there.
Cool. You do some crazy stuff over there, so it's not just WoW content, guys. There's some insane things. So at least go check out his YouTube videos. There's some stuff that it's like, that's not a thing. Oh, it is. It is a thing, and he can do it repeatedly. So
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was good talking to you.